I'm a chemical engineer by training, and right now, as Jaykumarji mentioned, I'm a professor of Ayurveda biology and holistic nutrition at Transdisciplinary University. But I've been researching plants for nearly 30 years, right since my PhD days when I was trying to grow them in bioreactors. My interests have been trying to get value-added compounds from plants. They're source of nutrition, exploring them for source of nutrition, for wellness, for high-value extracts and molecules. And my current interest in Ayurveda that I've been researching for the last few years is in primarily three areas that I look at. One is the area of integrative nutrition. That how do we combine Ayurveda nutritional principles with modern nutrition science for mass personalization? And I think that's where there's a very strong connect with the company like Herbalife, which also looks at nutritional and personalization. The second area of research is Dravya Guna that I look at, which is the properties of botanicals that are used in Ayurveda and other medical systems and local health traditions. And the third one is Bhaisajya Kalpana, which is the core link with my chemical engineering, because that's the area of processing. And how does this processing apply to Ayurveda botanicals? And how do you bring it to scale, from small processes in the kitchen? How do you take it forward into industrial processes while keeping the essence of it alive? So those are the three research areas that I work on. And today's session that leading here is a training on Vritilife, right? Herbalife's new brand, the Ayurveda brand, and the first two products which are launched under this brand, Immune Health and Brain Health, that I'm also consuming now on a regular basis. Yeah, and so you're all very well versed with Herbalife nutrition, and you know that Herbalife brings to you this new line of Vritilife products. But what does Vritilife stand for? I think most of you are already very familiar with, but I have just maybe a few minutes to reiterate, right? That what does it Vritilife stand for? What does it mean? Well, literally, Vritilife is a combination of two words, Vriti and life, right? And Vriti indicates choice, right? In Sanskrit, thoughtfulness, and life, of course, comes from the mother brand Herbalife. That's the connect. So Vriti life, together the word indicates a life of thoughtfulness, a mindful life, and this mindfulness is becoming a very important word for wellness and well-being, right? So I think that's one word that all of you should kind of remember: this mindful living. And nutritive supplements play such an important role in a mindful life, mindful living. Herbalife is one of the world's leading nutrition companies, and this addition of this Ayurveda nutrition, the Vritilife based products, is to its already impressive portfolio is a very exciting opportunity. At the same time, I mean, it's exciting because I think one reason for the excitement that I feel is that it's a product range which has been crafted by its Indian business team, right? And I think because of that, the onus is on us to make sure that it is as credible and as authentic as all of the other products that Herbalife has. And I think therefore, I am hugely excited about the training program as well that we have, because I think it's extremely important for us to take this forward with rigor and take it forward to the consumers with all the explaining all the science which has gone into not just the traditional knowledge which is there on which the products are based, but all the scientific methodologies which have been followed, all the rigor that has been followed in sourcing and the whole supply chain of it to ensure its quality in the tablets that we have as the immune health and the brain health, the first two products that we have. Hopefully you can all see the screen now as we go on to, first few slides are talking about Ayurveda, because I think before we get to the actual products, it's important to understand a few basic concepts of Ayurveda. And as I say, The purpose is not here to make all of us experts in Ayurveda or Vaidyas in Ayurveda who can practice and preach Ayurveda. I myself am not a Vaidya. I'm a researcher of Ayurveda. And what I want to convey in the first few slides are some of the basic concepts that all of us should be familiar with. On that basis, then it's easier to understand the Vritilife portfolio. So starting here, Ayurveda, what does the word Ayurveda mean? Right? Ayurveda, again, two parts to the word, Ayur, which means life, and Veda, which means knowledge. So together it means the knowledge of life. Right? It's a system of health and wellness which is rooted in India's, I think, three things that I think very important to it. One is that's it rooted in India's rich heritage and folk knowledge of the plants, the natural wealth which is around us, right? Which are, and we're talking about plants in the context of Vritilife, right? India has a diversity of plants, nearly 10,000 or so, out of which 6,500 have been used for medicinal purposes over India's rich history of 5,000 years or so. So that's one, right? Our heritage. The second is our medicinal practice systems, right? Modern, but as well as traditional knowledge systems. Yeah. And Ayurveda is one of the earliest ones, but Ayurveda is there, Siddha is there, Unani is there, even homeopathy is there, Swaragpa is there. So the number of traditional medicinal practice systems we've had. Yeah. Besides the local health tradition. And lastly, it's the philosophical systems that we have, right? So philosophy systems such as Sankhya, such as Vedanta, such as Yoga. We have about 6 classical systems of philosophy that we don't talk much about. But these are the 3 main things: our biodiversity and heritage of the biodiversity, our medicinal practice systems, and our philosophical systems, which come together into Ayurveda. And 5,000 years of practice now for Ayurveda. Starting initially, the first text you could see almost is Atharveda, which is the 4th of the Vedas, which has a few shlokas, about 40, 50 shlokas on medicine in there, which over time then became expanded to almost nearly 10,000 shlokas, or actually 100,000 shlokas, out of which 10,000 is what we have today. The remaining texts have been lost. But we have 100,000 classical texts which are still with us, many of them not translated yet. So we have a wealth of information with us. I talk about these classical texts being available with us is an extremely important point, because how do you understand the credibility of any knowledge system? You understand through its textbooks. Does it have a textbook? Because if it doesn't have a textbook, it's an anecdotal knowledge. And anecdotal knowledge need not be very well researched. But if there are textbooks available, and textbooks available from nearly 3,000 years ago, then it is certainly a knowledge-based system, right? It is not an anecdotal system. And so Ayurveda has immense wealth of its knowledge is captured in a number of classical texts, right? There are links of Ayurveda. Some of the key teachers or preachers of Ayurveda, the founders of Ayurveda, like Rishi Atreya, right, in this picture here, or Rishi Agnivesha, Rishi Prashar. You may have heard of these names, right, in various stories, etc. But many of these are real personalities who existed and were teachers in universities like Takshila. And so there's a strong link of Ayurveda with the university system of India, of ancient India, with Buddhist literature. And that again points to the credibility of Ayurveda. Okay. The other important point I wanted to talk about Ayurveda, now that we're familiar with its name and its origins and its credibility as a knowledge system rooted in India, is this thing that you will keep coming across, that Ayurveda is a holistic system of practice. So what do we mean by this holistic framework and practice system of health and wellness? If you look at focused and very successfully focused on curing the disease of the diseased. Right? So once we are not well, we go to a doctor, go to a hospital, and provide medicines or whatever treatment. That's curative, right? This system where you cure the diseases of the diseased is a curative system. And over time, over the last century and a half, we've developed various cutting-edge tools and technologies to the curative part. Yeah. what Ayurveda, so Ayurveda also has a curative system, but along with curative, it has laid equal emphasis on the preventive part as well, which is maintaining the health of the healthy, right? This is the preventive, the restorative part of the practice system, and that is key to make it holistic, right? Because now it's preventive plus curative, right? The other reason I talk of Ayurveda is holistic is because it combines Aushadhi, which is medicine, along with Ahar and Vihar, which is diet and lifestyle, right? Which is what makes it complete and holistic in a sense. Right? There are other reasons to call it holistic as well, that it combines reductionism with systems knowledge as well. But what is the foundation of Ayurveda? Well, the foundation of Ayurveda, in a sense, I spoke about its philosophy: Antariksh, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Prithvi. Right. So these are the 5 elements, and they are called Panch Mahabhut. Right. Panch is 5, and Mahabhut are the big elements. Right, are the 5 main elements. So Panch Mahabhut. Each of these, is of these elements associated with certain properties. Yeah, they are characterized by some properties or gunas, as they are called, right? And so what are the gunas? For example, if we are looking at earth, right? Earth is characterized by gunas, properties such as heaviness, roughness, it's hard, it's a dense material. Water is cool, is heavy, is fluid, right? It flows, unlike the earth. It's softer, right? Fire is hot, it's sharp, it's rough, it's light, however, it rises, right? Fire rises. Air is dry, it's light, it's clear. It's also very diffusive, which is what minute, that it can penetrate easily, right? It's minute in that sense, and so on. So these are some properties. And so when we talk about that the human body is also made of these 5 elements, we are not necessarily saying in quantitative terms that, hey, Gurmeet here is made of 70% water and 20% earth and 5% fire and 2% air and so on. We are trying to say that, hey, what are our, what are the qualities of my body, right? So looking at, is my body rough? Is my skin rough? Yeah. Am I cool to touch? Is my hand cool to touch, or is it warm to touch? Right? Do I feel light when I move, or do I feel heavy when I move? Right? So those are the kind of things that that we are looking at in qualitative terms, right? And it's these qualities which separate us. Otherwise, everybody, all of us, would be very similar in composition if we're looking at compositional terms, right? Most of us have similar amounts of water and similar amounts of, carbon and hydrogen and nitrogen. But it's these qualitative aspects which separate us, because while our compositionally, all of us may be very similar, but some of us, when we shake hands, something else besides this compositions, and this is where the Panch Mahabhuta comes in, right? And so we spoke about these 5 elements, right? And now I come to this second concept of how this Panch Mahabhuta concept then crystallizes itself into the Prakriti and Dosha Siddhant, right? The Tridosha Siddhant. So Siddhant is the concept, right? So these 5 elements and these properties, right? If the excess of these gunas, or the properties that I spoke about, leads to what are called as doshas. Yeah? In some sense, you could say dosha is a defect, right? So the excesses, right, can lead to doshas. And there are 3 main doshas, right, which is the vata, the pitta, and the kapha. Vata dosha is the excess of properties which, or the gunas, which arise from air and space, right? So things like lightness, minuteness, clarity, softness, smoothness, right? The excesses of these will lead to vata. Right? All of us need these gunas, right? It's not that by themselves the gunas are bad. They're neither good or bad. So don't look at gunas in terms of guna means it has to be good. It's just a property, right? And by themselves, none of these properties are good or bad. Roughness does not mean it's bad. It's a required property. It's only the excess of it which can lead to a dosha. And so Pitta dosha is excesses of properties arising from fire and water, and Kapha dosha is excesses arising from properties related with earth and water, right? So we have three doshas now. So for 5 elements, we came to gunas, and there are about 20 to 30 gunas, depending on gunas, the excesses of those gunas, we come to doshas, right? So each of us will have a certain excess of some of these properties, and therefore, we have some vata in pitta in us and kapha in us, right? And now the composition or the profile of these three doshas defines our prakriti. So each one of us has, and it's the profile of how much of these three doshas that we have that defines my prakriti. So each one of us, how many prakriti? The important part here is that there is a equilibrium between this. So there is no, it doesn't mean that if I am only a kapha personality that I have an imbalance. No matter what my prakriti, my body is in balance. Right? That's the key point. So no matter where we are all in balance. But this balance is a dynamic balance, right? What do we mean by this balance? Is a dynamic balance between our three doshas? Is it a dynamic balance? It's dynamic balance because this balance is around us, right? Every second, it's changing, right? So it's changing all the time. And our body needs to respond to this changing environment to keep its balance, to keep the balance of the three doshas, right? So there are changing seasons, and that creates a stress on our body, and our body needs to respond and restore our balance. There are changes in environment, many times induced just because of travel, right? I go from Bangalore, where I live, and travel to Delhi. That's a change in environment for me. There are so many things which change, right? From the type of air, from the to the weather, the pollution level, maybe. There are so many changes which happen. So my body needs to respond to that pretty much immediately. And of course, changing age, right? As we go through various life stages, right? Our age is changing. So we are constantly exposed to change. As they say, change is the only constant in life, right? So we're constantly exposed to change, and our body needs to respond to that, right? So I said every prakriti is actually balanced. That is right. But that balance is disturbed by these changes that we encounter, the changes in the environment that we encounter, and our body needs to respond. So just imagine that अगर खड़े हैं हम and धक्का लग गया तो I get disturbed, right? And I can fall down unless I restore my balance. And that's what happens, right? If somebody pushes me, I don't usually fall down. I'm able to restore my balance, right? But some people, it's easier for them to fall down, and some it's easier to come back and not feel anything. And similarly with our prakriti, there are some prakritis for which it's easier to restore our balance back after being exposed to disturbance. There are other prakritis where it's a little more challenging to restore. And therefore, all of us need some help. While our body is capable of responding to the changes and restoring the balance back, the homeostasis back, but there are things which can help us in restoring this balance. And some of those things are rooted in the Ayurveda botanicals and Ayurveda supplements. And we'll talk about a few of them today. We'll talk about the context of change affecting two aspects of our health today, the immune health aspect and the brain health aspect. And we'll study both of these in the context of in a slightly different context. We've selected that immune health I'll talk about in the context of changes in season, and the brain health I'll talk about in the context of the changing of the life stages, how change in life stage impacts that. And we'll talk about the two products we have, the Vritilife products, the immune health product and the brain health product, in the context of how does it help in bringing the balance back, restoring the balance back for these two cases. Okay, but before I get into the products, a few key concepts again, I felt that it's important to emphasize. I spoke about the credibility and the research that goes into designing our products. And so there are three elements I wanted to highlight here. One is the research that goes into selecting the ingredients and then sourcing the ingredients. Right? Second, the research which goes into the processing of those ingredients and converting them into a formulation that is consumed by us. And third is the research which goes into the formulation from the perspective of the absorption of the actives from that formulation so that it is efficacious and it has the desired effect that we're talking about. And in today's call, we're talking about immune health and brain health. So Ayurveda has also focused on these three important elements, right? And not only has it focused on it, there are entire syllabi around these three. And the syllabi, the whole area of Dravya Guna, as it is called in Sanskrit, which is to do with ingredient properties, the area of Bhaisajya Kalpana, which has to do with the processing science. Kalpana is processing in Sanskrit, right? It's not just imagination, it's the area of process science. And Rasayana, which is the area of absorption and assimilation. So there are texts written, there is a lot of knowledge which is captured, and any formulation that you see will have focused on these three things. It will focus on the ingredient properties, the processing, and the assimilation aspects, the karma and leading to karma. So those are some of the important research areas, and understanding the ingredients that we are eating is important for one's self-awareness. And that's why connecting it again to self-awareness and a higher level of consciousness that I had used in my earlier charts. And this depth of knowledge, when we talk about in each of these three areas, is also related to an awareness, a higher level of awareness. And that's the difference between, let's say, folk knowledge or Dadi Ma ke nuskhe versus Ayurveda and modern science. Is this higher level of awareness, higher level of knowledge, the higher research which has gone into it. I mean, I spoke about that there are 6,500 botanicals which have been used for in context of health traditions in India. But not all 6,500 of them are used in Ayurveda. Only 1,200 are used in Ayurveda, right? And why only 1,200? Why not 6,500? Because 6,500 have been used in folk knowledge. And not because of this higher level of research which is required before a plant is taken into the Ayurveda materia medica, right? Or the list of ingredients that it can use, right? So in Dravyaguna, when we come to Dravyaguna or properties of the ingredients, these 1,200 ingredients, the plants that we spoke about, which are part of Ayurveda's medicine chest or materia medica, as it's called, the materials used in medicine, materia medica, the Latin word for that. Well, these are 4 key properties which are researched, right, before things entered. And they're very similar to what is done in modern science as well. For any plant, the first thing that you have to research is nomenclature, what is called as Nam Gyan in Sanskrit or Ayurveda, and in modern context is called the nomenclature. We should all, irrespective of whether I reside in India or I'm in the United States or I'm in Australia or in some other country, if we are all shown one plant, we should be able to name it exactly in the same way, right? So that's, you have to research. There is a lot of research which goes into the nomenclature of the plant. And today we adopt what is called as the binomial system of naming plants. And we'll talk about these binomial names for each of the Ayurveda plants. So every Ayurveda plant, while it has a Sanskrit name and it has multiple names, because even in Charaka Samhita, one plant may be written, every plant may have 40 or 50 different names by which it is mentioned, right? I mean, a simple thing like Haldi. Haldi is one name, but Haldi is also called Nisha, right? Haldi is also called Haridra. And there are 30, 40 names of Haldi in that way. And they occur in different parts, different shlokas, different names are presented. And so all of them point to Curcuma longa in today's nomenclature, which is the scientific binomial, right? So a lot of research which goes into the nomenclature. Similarly, the physical characteristics of that botanical, right? A lot of emphasis is laid on that, and that's called Roop Gyan. A lot of these physical characteristics are now also studied. Earlier, they were studied visually. Today, we have microscopes to evaluate them. We have light microscopes. We even have electron microscopes to examine them. So the Ayurveda Pharmacopoeia of India, right, provides for all the botanicals, the scientific names which are prevalent today. It provides the roop gyan or the physical characteristics of these, along with pictures, along with methods, what we call as taxonomic examination or macroscopic examination and microscopic examination of these tissues, right, which is provided. Then we have the rasa gyan, right, which is the chemical properties of the materials. In Ayurveda, a lot of emphasis was given to rasa, which is the taste part. They didn't have, so a lot of emphasis was given to the tongue, as the receptors on the tongue are very sophisticated, right? And so experts were there who could chemistry of the analysis of the plant, and rasa, guna, virya, and vipak, the four key areas of the rasa gyan which are looked at. And then finally, the karma gyan, which is what we call as the activity. What will this do? What is the physiological, what is the metabolical activity of this? That's the karma gyan. And we have a whole listing of each of this in Ayurveda on the karma gyan. And most of these plants are also now being researched using modern tools to arrive at their activities. What is their activity? Validate them to create on ingredients, right? The second area that I'd spoken about was processing, which is called Bhaisajya Kalpana, right? And again, these texts that we spoke about, medicinal texts, they don't just ingredients into the formulations as well. And so there's extensive literature there. There are different processing techniques which have been listed, whether we have to extract in water, or we have to extract in oil, or we have to extract in an alkali environment, a basic environment, or it's the volatiles that we have to extract, or we extract as asava arishta, which is the alcoholic extracts. So a lot of emphasis given to formulation and processing in Ayurveda. And then we come to if you compare this with the Herbalife's nutrition philosophy, right? There are similarities here that you would have. You're familiar with Herbalife products already, and you would see that when we talk about these Ayurveda formulations, that there are similarity to the philosophy. The Ayurveda philosophy has great similarities with Herbalife's philosophy of personalization, because Herbalife also believes in well-researched ingredients, right? Quality of those ingredients is of immense importance to Herbalife, right? You're looking at macronutrients, micronutrients, phytonutrients, researching the quality right from the sourcing to quality, so that they're available in various formats and flavors to provide a variety of options, so that each one of us can choose from that and make them and adapt them into embed them into your lifestyles, right? So there are similarities, I would say, very strong similarities between the two systems. This concept of rasayana that I spoke about, right? That it is not just the ingredients and their processing or activation that is important, but also whatever we create as a tablet, we need to make sure that it absorbs, right? And reaches the parts of the body where it can have an impact. So absorption of the ingredients or the actives of the ingredients by our body is equally paramount, right? And in Ayurveda, this is the area of research is called Rasayana, and there are three subdivisions in there: Shrota Shodhan, which is the channels and the purification of the channels for absorption; Agni Vyapara, which is that only the actives have to actually reach the tissues, they'll have an impact. The emphasis is we look at many of these Ayurvedic formulations, and one word that people speak about is distinguishing feature people speak about is the polyherbal nature of these formulations, right? And why polyherbal? Why do we, in many instances, while there are instances where we'll have a single herb, but many instances we require polyherbal formulations. And why this polyherbal? Why the mix of herbs? The reasons are for stabilizing, for example, right? For countering side effects, as an example. Sometimes they are just to make it more tasty so that people will eat it. So bitter needs to be balanced by, say, aromatic species to balance it, right? But one important reason for this polyherbal is also uh, to maximize absorption. So some of the elements in these polyherbal formulations are to maximize absorption of the actives so that they are efficacious as well. Uh, and again, bringing the parallel with Herbalife, Herbalife also lays emphasis on the absorption and assimilation of the nutrients, right? The whole area of cellular science that you would have come across again and again, right? This area of cellular science is one of the key building blocks of Herbalife's nutrition philosophy and nutrition science, right? The products are research backed with cellular science to ensure not just the ingredients of quality are used, but they're also presented in a manner which are efficacious. So now let's come to the two products in Vritilife, right? Immune health and brain health. And look at how some of these principles that we have spoken about, yeah, from an Ayurveda context, how have they been used in designing these two products that today you have in your hands, right? And this is an important thing for each one of us to understand, that what is the rigor, what is the effort, what's the scientific nature of the work which has gone into crafting these two products, right? You'll find many products talking about immune health today, thanks to COVID, right? And you'll again see many products out there in the market talking about brain health, right? But what you have to look at are what are the salient features, what are the unique features, what is the rigor which has gone into Vritilife's products, right? And that's what we are going to emphasize in the next few charts. Yeah? So let's begin by looking at immunity first. Yeah. And so what is immune system? I mean, simple terms, immunity, it's our body's defense system, right? To fight foreign matter, to fight disease. What is this foreign matter? It could be viruses, it could be bacteria, it could be protozoa, it could be fungi. Our body needs to respond to this foreign matter which invades us, which attacks us, right? And so it's what part of our body does that? We have the immune system of the body to do that. And the human immune system is extremely complex. It comprises of a vast network of cells and tissues that are always on the lookout for this foreign matter, for the foreign invaders. And as soon as the foreign matter is detected, the immune system kicks in, right? It starts playing its role. And there are big parts to our immune system. One is the general part, which is called the innate immunity. And the second part is the adaptive immunity, which then remembers, hey, this kind of invasion can happen. And so next time, let me be ready for it, right? So there are these various complex systems which come into play, right? So how do we keep our immune system healthy is the question, because our survival depends on it, right? We are always getting invaded by foreign matter, and we need to make sure that our immune system is healthy, because that's what is protecting us, right? And so much science has happened over the last 100 years or so about immune system in the modern science context. And these are the 5 key building blocks for supporting our immune system. This is what science is telling us. Number 1, balanced nutrition is extremely important. Number 2, exercise is required. Right? Number 3, we need to manage our stress. Number 4, we need to adequate that we are sleeping properly, right? And we have quality sleep, right? And number 5, social connect is extremely important. Again and again, through various studies, this is coming up, that social connect is really important in keeping a healthy life. So, okay. So, when we look at Ayurveda also lays a importance to all these 5, right? And they are part of what are called as dinacharya and ritucharya, right? Which is our daily regimen and our regimen that needs to change along with the seasons. That's healthy lifestyle in a sense. It lays emphasis on all of these things as well, and on diet as well, right? And Ayurveda also talks about I put this chart in there because of balanced nutrition. A diet is called the Nitya Samya, which are principles or things that we can have on a daily basis. What is wholesome food and can be consumed on a daily basis? It's very well balanced, right? And when we start mapping the 11 ingredients given in Ayurveda, right? And I have them listed here: Shastik Shali, rice; Godhuma, which is wheat; Yava, which is barley; Mudka, which is moong dal; Paya, which is milk. There is ghee, there is sandha, which is salt from the riverbeds, and then madhu, honey, amla, gooseberry, antariksh jal, jungle mass, meat of animals. And so these are the 11 which are been listed as a balanced diet, and mapping them against the modern science view of nutrition in terms of the macronutrients and the micronutrients. You can see there's a very good match, right? I have left one green block, one white block empty there that we'll fill next, right? So, I spoke about that our body is under stress of change all the time because the environment is changing, and that changing environment puts the body into stress, and body needs to respond to that change, right? That's the stress. We need to respond to that change, and most of us can do that in context of immunity with the 5 things that we just mentioned, right? This balanced nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep, and socialization. But what can we support it further? Because all of us do see, let's say, in the weather in Delhi, the climate in Delhi, and how it changes with the seasons. And it is showing 2 things, right? It is showing temperature, and it is showing the humidity level, right? 2 aspects that I'm just showing to show what are the changes. And if you look at in the month of January, February, it's moist and cold in Delhi. If you've seen the pictures coming from Delhi these days, some rain, and of course it is very chilly, right? You can characterize the season by moist and cold. Come April and May, the moisture would have gone down quite dramatically from about 60-70% humidity to about 30-40% humidity. So it's very dry, right, during the months of April. And the temperature goes up quite dramatically, right, from about 20 or so right now to about 40 on an average that time. So April, May are dry and hot months. Then come July, August, those are the rainy seasons, right? End of June is when monsoon hits Delhi. And so it becomes very humid and it is still very hot, right? So those are broadly 3 broad, very distinct months if you're living in Delhi. And those are the times when seasons change and come to such extremes that that our immune health may require some support, because that's when we encounter coughs and colds and sneezing, and inkling, gale mein kharash, etc. So what can we do to support ourselves, for in respond to changes in season and the context of immune health? I'd shown this chart earlier a few minutes ago, and I'd left a spot empty, and that's a spot now that I have filled up saying phytonutrients, right? And we mentioned that Ayurveda uses about 1200 botanicals or so, and you could say that they fit into this phytonutrients space, right? These are botanicals which can be used as top-ups to our balanced diet that we are consuming, right? Phytonutrients is a new area, and you've been with Herbalife for some time now. For those who've been with Herbalife, you would have heard the word phytonutrients again and again, right? These are things which are emerging over the last 20-30 years. Macronutrients like carbohydrates and proteins and fats for a long time though. Now, we also know the micronutrients, right, which are the vitamins and the minerals for more than 100 years now. Right? But phytonutrients are things which don't fit to micronutrients or macronutrients, but are emerging as important nutrients, important molecules that we should be consuming for our health. And many of these could probably support us in our immune health. So when Herbalife looked at crafting a product, designing a product for Vritilife, for immune health, it looked at this library of 1200 ingredients and said, which of these Ayurveda botanicals would actually help us for immune health? Which of these can we consume on a daily basis? Which of these all of us can consume, right? And And so that seems like a simple question, but the answer is not that easy, because you have to do a lot of research to come up with this. And through a lot of research, reading of the classical text, the experts at Vritilife, at Herbalife, identified these three powerhouses of Ayurveda, you could say, Kalmeg, Tulsi, and Katuki, and said that these are the three that we need to bring together, combine into one polyherbal mix, which we call as immune health, into one product, and bring together for immune health. Kalmeg, I spoke about the binomial nomenclature, the scientific nomenclature for this. So all these three have been very well researched, and their names are now internationally recognized as Andrographis paniculata, which is Kalmeg, Ocimum sanctum, which is Tulsi, and Picrorhiza curua, which is Katuki. Right. And so this polyherbal formulation with these three ingredients, Kalmeg, Tulsi, and Katuki, is what exists as the immune health product for Vritilife. Right. So it's, in a sense, Ayurveda nutrition that is scientifically formulated to help support our natural immunity. And now let us see what is the research which has gone into designing this, and why is it that Vritilife says, Herbalife says, that you can enjoy it every season and every day. Right. 1 to 2 tablets that can be consumed on a daily basis to improve natural immunity and help manage signs of common cold. As I said, that these are things that need to be, that the common cold is probably the single most common indicator, that's probably common cold, of our immunity getting compromised, right? And the immune health product, Vritilife immune health product, helps us in supporting our natural immunity and an indicator is that we can manage signs of common cold with this. Right? So I said, what's the research? Let's look at what is the research which has gone into designing this product. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so the first product, and I'll go a little more detailed into Kalmeg, and then talk a little bit about, not as much of detail about Tulsi and Katuki. So Kalmeg, as I said, powerhouse superfood of Ayurveda, right? Known as Andrographis paniculata. It's a simple, modest herb, but its use has been there actually predating Ayurveda. Dates back to, tribal formulations, local health traditions, people living in the tribes living in the Himalayas, in the base of the Himalayas, people called Kirats, right? Who've been managing symptoms of cold, etc., with Kalmeg for more than 1,000 years, right? And so Kalmeg was then, from our local health traditions, got codified into Ayurveda, as the Ayurveda sages, the rishis and the munis, the experts, studied it more and brought it into the fold of Ayurveda. It's also called as Kirat Tikta. Kirat in reference to the tribal origin of this botanical, and Tikta is the bitter. It's the word for bitter taste in Ayurveda, right? It's Rasa, Guna, Virya, Vipak, Dosha, Karma are spelled out in Ayurveda, which again talks about, which indicates the research has gone into it. I'll highlight a couple of things here. One, the whole concept of this is part of the Kattu groups, the Tikta Kattu groups, the Tikta Rasa and the Kattu Vipak group of botanicals, which is their taste on the tongue is bitter, but their effect post metabolism is pungent, and that's the key in Ayurveda to immune health in a sense. The other two things I wanted to point out was the Virya, which is that this is a cooling. If you put Kalmeg, though it's bitter today, it's slightly cooling on the tongue, and it's Dosha Karma, which is that it pacifies all the three doshas. He said it's extremely important that our doshas don't get exaggerated. They are kept pacified, the Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. And if all the Kapha, Pitta, and Vata are all three pacified, then it's something that we can consume on a regular basis, right? And so here we see that it's Kalmeg at least pacifies two of them. So Vata is still left out, and let's see, will one of the other two botanicals do that job? The last thing I wanted to point here is that you will see that under Kalmeg at the bottom, it says Deepan Dravya. And I spoke about this rasayana, or the absorption and assimilation. And Deepan here points to that, because this ensures that there is a good absorption of it. Deepan is the digestive process, the metabolic process. It helps in that. And so there's a good absorption of the actives here. What is the other research which has gone? Well, the research begins it, right? So that's the Ayurveda research. But Ayurveda also says that you need to focus on the source, the effort which has gone into sourcing of this botanical. Right, so our Kalmek, which goes into Vritilife, has been sourced from Madhya Pradesh, the center of India. Actually, Madhya Pradesh, the area of Nimach, right, which is pretty much the border between Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. The soil there, different types of soils, and black soil is there, laterite soil is there, and a lot of the good botanicals, actually almost 500 botanicals of Ayurveda are grown in that and sourced from that region. And we have sourced our Kalmek from that region. It has the right soil, we feel, for the activity that we require, for the quality that we require for our product. And we've made sure that the quality, so once we've identified the region, the next thing is, are we getting the right plant, the right planting material, the right cultivar? No? There is this terroir and cultivar. Terroir talks about the soil and the weather, and cultivar, the plant source. And so we're sourcing the plants from government approved agencies, getting the seeds and then planting them into the soil. We're working with the farmers there. Our suppliers are working with the farmers there, ensuring proper cultivation practices, proper irrigation practices, proper weeding practices. And after caring for it nearly about 120 days, the plant is ready for harvest, right? And then there are practices which are therefore done, quality checks which are done at the time of cultivation, at the time of harvest, and then post-harvest when it is brought and sorted out. And that whole area of sourcing and quality check and processing, the post-harvest botanical processing, is the area called Bhaisajya Kalpana. And there are multiple checks which happen there. So let's look at, so once those checks have taken place, the quality checks on sourcing, the check on the soil, the check on the harvested material, the sorting of that done, the size reduction done, the drying done in appropriate conditions, right? The next thing is, okay, the ingredient is, quality ingredient is there, that's fine. But is this efficacious enough, right, to put into our tablets? Will it have the desired effect? And so the ingredient that we have selected has gone through a number of clinical studies, right? We source it from a company which has done a number of clinical studies on this. And the highest level of a clinical study, because there are a number of clinicals and different clinical studies which are always published. But if you are checking for the gold standard of a clinical study, what are the best standards to use by? And this is a word that you need to remember probably and talk about it when you are taking Vritilife to your customers or to your consumers. You have to remember this phrase: randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical study. Because people say, is clinical study done? Yes, clinical study done. But clinical study is of different qualities, right? And the topmost quality is, which is randomized clinical study, which is a double-blind clinical study, which is a placebo-controlled clinical study. It's called an RCT study. And so the ingredient, the Andrographis paniculata extract that we have selected has gone through this kind of a clinical study and shown that it works on symptoms of common cold, right? And the study was a reasonable size study, 220 adult human beings with proper inclusion-exclusion criteria. And the outcomes were that a standardized extract of Andrographis paniculata helps manage, successfully manages common cold symptoms. So our Vritilife product here, you have to be proud of the fact, has gone through rigor from sourcing, various quality checks done in the field during cultivation, various quality checks done post-harvest botanical processing, and then the quality or the efficacy done in a clinical study, and not just any clinical study, but the best quality clinical study, which is the randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. Right? Let's very quickly talk about the other two products. Katuki, which is a bittersweet root. It has also a very long history. Interestingly, its history predates Ayurveda. as well, 5,000 years. And interestingly, it has been used not just in India but outside as well. And I mean, its current name, Picroryza, is a Greek word, right? Comes from Pikro in Greek language, means bitter, and Rhiza, which means root, right? Which indicates its popularity around the world. And again, if you look at the properties, the deepen property is again highlighted here, right? Which I talked about had to do with rasayan or absorption. And again, very well studied. And if you look at virya, again, it's a cooling virya, right? So both these herbs now, kalmeg and katuki, are cooling. We are missing the heating to balance it. And dosha karma, it pacifies kapha and pitta. And so again, vata is getting missed out. So let's see what we do with tulsi now. Why is tulsi in there? So tulsi is again improves immune health, supports immune health because of its nature of kattu, of tikta in rasa and kattu in vipak, right? So it helps immune health. But you can now see its virya as ushna, heating. So it balances the other two, which are cooling. And its dosha karma, it pacifies vata as well. So now with its inclusion, we have a tridoshik polyherbal, which is, it balances all the three doshas. And again, deepan dravya, which is that it will help in its assimilation. So this is what Vritilife is, that it is a very well-balanced polyherbal formulation, which can be consumed on a regular basis. Yeah. And who should choose this? Anybody, I think, anybody who is interested in supporting their immune health. Most of us are, especially over the last 9 months, 10 months, all of us have been become aware of the importance of supporting our immune health. And so the immune health formulation, Vritilife's immune health formulation, is an important one to consume, right? And important, I say it's a good one to consume because of the rigor that has gone into developing this product, the science backing which has gone into it, the detailed attention to detail in terms of at every single aspect, stage thing of traceability right back from your tablet to the. Okay, so now let's come to the brain health part of it. And let me see how I'm doing for time. Yep, okay, 10 more minutes. So, so let's come to the brain health. So what does brain do? What's the job of our brain, right? Multiple tasks, actually. A brain is a very complex organ, right? And it does multiple tasks. Some of them are listed here. The cognitive domains of brain, as we call them, attention, perception, analysis, learning, memory, retention, review, retrieval, and even the executive function. It's deciding what to act, how to respond, right? And so keeping it healthy is important. And how do we keep our brain healthy? What is science talking about? Modern science talking about a healthy brain? Well, modern science is saying extremely important to eat right for a healthy brain, right? And what does eating right mean? Two aspects. Number one, the brain requires a huge amount of energy. While it's only about 5% of our body weight, about 1.5 kgs, about 1.5 kgs of our body weight. I'm 60 kgs and about 1.5 kgs is my brain size, right? So it's about 2-3% of my body weight in that sense, right? In body volume at least. But 20% of my energy is used up by the brain. And I need to make sure that I am providing it the right fuel, the good fuel, yeah, for its energy. Also, it needs other brain boosting foods. 3 in particular: antioxidants, B vitamins, and healthful fats, omega fats, because the brain is rich in fat and rich in omega fats, and we need to eat the right amount to support that. So those are 3 extremely important nutrients to have. Beyond that, we require lifestyle things like eating in moderation, getting sufficient sleep, yeah, staying hydrated, having enough water, not stressing too much. So maybe a little bit of meditation, some slight exercise will help there, and reducing the negatives such as maybe too much of salt or too much of alcohol, etc. Some of the foods which are good are given here, things like berries, chocolate, dark green vegetables. So berries and chocolates and tea, they're all good sources of antioxidants. Dark green vegetables, good sources of B vitamins. Healthful fats are there in things like avocados and oily fish and nuts and seeds. So a good balanced diet. Yeah. And Herbalife's nutrition philosophy has a number of products which help us in many of these healthy fats and phytonutrients that we just spoke about. So let's look at, are there other things that we can do? besides what we get from a balanced diet and from our Herbalife range of products, which could help in the brain further? Are there other good botanicals, other phytonutrients which are available? And let's look at this again from the lens of Ayurveda and from the lens of life stages. Right? What does Ayurveda say about brain health? Well, Ayurveda talks about life stages, that as we grow, right, as we go from one life stage to another, from an adolescent to a young adult, propensity, the various doshas which can get inflamed are kapha early on, pitta in the middle ages, and vata as we transition from middle age to a senior citizen. So those are the doshas to focus on. And as these doshas have focus and memory. Pitta on intelligence, on learning, on grasping, on making decisions. Kapha learning, on memory, right? So we need to make sure that these are balanced throughout our life, right? And therefore, are there any things we can use from Ayurveda knowledge to support this, right? Are there unique ingredients that benefit the brain that can supplement whatever we get from our diet? And so the powerhouse for Ayurveda, if you read Ayurvedic literature, for brain health is Brahmi, Bacopa moneri. That's the scientific name, and Brahmi is the name. And Brahmi is a very beautiful name, right? It's a Sanskrit word. I love the name because it indicates universal consciousness. No, Brahma, it comes from Brahma, Brahmi, Brahma. Brahma, why is Brahma universal consciousness, right? Brahma is symbolized with four heads, right? That's the awareness, 360-degree awareness, open to thought, completely aware is what indicates. And that's what Brahmi is, that it promotes awareness, right? It's a very simple, very modest looking plant. We'll almost not notice it growing, and it grows in the most simplest of habitats, the marshy lands, the edges of where water meets land, right? And I say that because that becomes important from a sourcing story that you'll see. So Brahmi has been used known to support various texts have spoken about its ability to support memory and cognition, right? And that's why when Herbalife researchers are looking at designing a brain health product for Vritilife, they focused on Brahmi, right? Because that's the root the traditional in Ayurveda knowledge tells us. Now, you may ask us that, hey, brain health, while immune health is easier for all of us to look at, right? Because each of us probably on an yearly basis, we have some cough and cold, a niggling cough that as seasons transition, we're all aware of that. Brain health, not all of us have given us constant attention, has given much attention to it, right? But our brain is constantly telling us, trying to remind us that, hey, look after me, support me. All of us must have, I mean, we are leading busy lives, and I'm sure that we must have encountered things like, hey, I'm forgetting where my pencil is, where I keep my book, right? I may sometimes fail to recollect, yaar, us picture ka naam kya tha? What was the name of that movie? Or what was the second line of that song? Or what was the name of that sports star, the cricketer who scored century in that 2017 test in Dharamshala against the Australians, right? So, yaad hota hai, we know we remembered it, but it just now takes me an extra second or a few moments more to remember that now than it used to. Earlier, they used to come like that. Now, when I play Intakshari, I struggle to find the right song, right? So, I struggle to find where I kept my book. I struggle to remember names of people sometimes. And these are all indications, right? I struggle to focus many times. Maybe by now, almost an hour into this presentation, many of you may be finding it difficult to focus, right? And this is our brain reminding us, hey, I am there. Can you help me? Can you support me? So what is it that we can do? That's where Vritilife brain health comes in, that it can support our brain health, right? And so one tablet or two tablets every day. And why Vritilife? Because we are assured that this product is a standardized product, that research and rigor has gone into it. I keep coming back to these two words, research and rigor, right, which has gone into it. And so how has research gone into it? Let's see over the next few slides. First of all, when we talk about research and rigor, we talk about sourcing. Have we paid attention to the terroir and the cultivar? right? As I spoke about the sourcing part of it. So where are we sourcing? Where is Vritilife sourcing its Brahmi from? It's sourcing it from Sundarbans. He spoke about that Brahmi grows on marshy land. So if it's growing on marshy land where water meets land, Sundarbans is one of the world's largest marshlands, right? And so that's where our Brahmi herb is obtained from. Right. I don't know if you've been there. I've been to that to Sundarbans about 3 years ago. Very fascinating landscape, right? And so it's cultivated by the farmers there, and so therefore also provides a very sustainable means of livelihood, right? So we are doing a sustainability goodness as well. It's not only doing well when we take Vriti Life's Brahmi brain health product. It's not only doing good to us, but it's also creating livelihood in geographies which have very limited means of livelihood otherwise, right? It's grown with the best practices which are available, yeah, in terms of field management, in terms of cultivation, in terms of weed management, etc. Right? Uh, it's the collection practices. The farmers are trained on the collection practices, how to harvest, and especially in context of Brahmi, this collection practice becomes extremely important because it's a very small plant, right? And when you have a very small plant, only a few inches, 5-6 inches, it's less than your hand, half the size of your palm, right? When you harvest it, it's very easy to get contamination from the soil, right? So you have to be harvesting it very carefully, and those harvest practices have been taught through the farmer to keep hygiene, to make sure the contamination is minimized. And so at each stage, the harvesting stage, chopping it off from the plant rather than pulling out the root, to bringing it to the factory, to reducing the size from 5 to 6 inches to about 1 to 2 inches, because it's a highly, the moisture of the plant is very high. It's about 80, 85%, 90% water in there. So drying becomes extremely important. And to dry, so there are no differences in drying, right? So uniform drying and quality drying. You have to chop it. Size reduction is extremely important. The second step, which is shown on this chart. Moisture first reduced down to 20% through air dryers, and then through tray drying, and then further dried down to a stable moisture level, 5, 6, 7%, where it can then be packed and shipped across. If you don't do this process, you will not get a quality ingredient. It will have fungus during transportation, and it will fail the quality checks of Herbalife. So these things are taught, they're implemented, and all the quality checks are done at before drying, they are done at the time of dispatch, they are done at the time of reception. And a number of cutting edge modern analytical tools and physiochemical parameter checks are done once it reaches there. They're done for authentication, whether we are getting the right ingredient, and things like HPTLC, high performance thin layer chromatography for authentication, which gives the chemical fingerprint. The HPLC, or high performance liquid chromatography, to look at the biomarker, the molecular markers, that we have the right quality in there. The microbiology checks to make sure the contaminants are not there, that we spoke about. The physicochemical parameters of moisture, of ash, of density, of extractive values, to ensure that the high quality product is what we are getting into our factories. And then the residual analysis. It's not just important to make sure it has all the goodies in there, all the right actives in there, but also that it is devoid of things like heavy metals and solvents and pesticide residues, etc. So a lot of testing is done there to ensure that what we are getting is a quality product, a safe product, and an efficacious product. Efficacious how? I spoke about clinical tests, and we're very proud. I think Herbalife has looked at various suppliers and identified one where a number of clinical studies have been done, 11 clinical studies here. And as I said, the gold standard, the word that you need to remember when you talk about Vritilife's products, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical studies. So those 4 words, right? Randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical study, which is the best kind of clinical studies, the gold standard of clinical studies, which has been done on Becomine, which goes into this product, right? And so that's the product. It's in a modern format. It's in a format, a tablet form, which is easy to embed in your lifestyle. It's a patented product. It has a patented ingredient in it. It's a pure product, and it has gone through what you expect, the rigor that you expect of Herbalife's products, right? 5 stage of quality assurance, right? Traceability right from the tablet back all the way to the farm, right? and formulated based on the ancient Ayurveda knowledge. So it's a very good amalgamation, synergy, and integration of traditional Ayurveda knowledge with modern research tools and technologies. And that's what Vritilife is all about. I think these are the first two products that we have in Vritilife, but that's what Vritilife actually stands for, right? It talks about, what does it stand for? It stands for Ayurveda nutrition, a product range which is based on time-honored knowledge and complemented with cutting-edge science. Right? That combination of traditional knowledge with cutting-edge science tools is what Vritilife stands for. Right? I think on which the products are founded, and hopefully that comes through very clearly, right? Highly researched, clinically tested ingredient, right? And not just clinically tested, the gold standard of clinical testing, standardized authentication done by cutting edge tools of, we said, HPTLC, high performance thin layer chromatography, standardization using HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography, gas chromatography, right? So cutting edge analytical tools have been done, the traceable right up to the farm level, right? And exclusive products crafted by Ayurveda experts for Vritilife, and in a format which can be easily consumed and can become a part of our daily life by Herbalife's innovation philosophy. Body type analysis, you should go to a Vaidya if you're interested in finding a body, your Prakriti. The Vaidya is trained in your Prakriti analysis. The rules of Prakriti analysis are based on observing three different types of traits that each one of us has. Our physical traits. So there's a physical examination, physiological examination, and behavioral examination. Behavioral largely comes from, of course, the Vaidya's observation, but also from a self-reporting, yeah, of things. And so based on that analysis, a Vaidya will give us our Prakriti. There are some 3 or 4 questionnaires which are also available, validated questionnaires. When you go on the web today, a lot of things are available on the web, but not all the questionnaires are validated. There are only 3 or 4 that I know of are very well validated. One is by CDAC, which is the government questionnaire. One is by the Institute of Genomics in Delhi, which is the DBT Institute, Department of Biotechnology Institute of the government. They have developed validated questionnaires. One questionnaire also, Transdisciplinary University, where I work, has a validated questionnaire. And attempts are on that can these questionnaires also be made, how would they, could they be done by a unpracticed, a non-Vaidya person? If we send it out to people, could they get a first sense of their Prakriti? But I think if anybody is interested today, I would suggest go to a Vaidya and get your Prakriti assessed. All of you would have been given certain guidelines for use of any botanicals. When you consume anything, yeah, which is supporting outside of food, actually even for food, you need to really look at the guidelines which are available along with this. And for that, for Vritilife, I think 2 things that you need to keep in mind are certainly, one, that above 18, the recommendation is for above 18. And second is that for women, not pregnant, not lactating women, take these 2 guidelines as the first guidelines, right? And I think then, yeah, so those are the 2 guidelines to follow. We should not look at them as 2 separate, but I mean, from a science perspective, I can tell you absorption is when things get picked up from our intestine and get absorbed into the blood, right? From the intestine, from the gut side, they move into the bloodstream. That's the absorption, moves across this intestinal lining. And second is assimilation, is in the tissues, that what I refer to, which is that our blood takes it to the various tissues and finally getting assimilated at the site where its activity will be, right? Is where the assimilation is, right? Nutrition is something we can have on a daily basis, and medicine is something which is has to be prescribed by a Vaidya, yeah, in that sense. And then in between, of course, are the supplements area, right? Things like, for example, Chavanprash is there, right? Which we can now have almost on a daily basis, which is in the transition area. That it's more of a nutrition in that sense. Yeah? So, but that's broadly, that's how you would look at nutrition versus Aushadhi, right? Aushadhi is medicine, and nutrition is part of Ahar and Vihar.